early in the morning on May 31st, 2017. I'm between Highway 38 and Wolf Lake at our Wolf Lake camp. And this morning I'm going to start preparing for a kind of a monumental harvest of this area. It's a tough one for me in my dad's absence because we really struggled with what to do here and hadn't resolved it. But it is time to take out a lot of poor quality and a little bit of good quality, but we've got to release this white pine that is just really struggling in here with this competition. And we thought about, for years we thought about waiting until the balsam got bigger. Here's white pine, and then here's balsam. Waiting until this balsam got big enough to be able to get some lumber out of it. But as it's gotten bigger, some of it also has gotten rotten. And so the decision just kept being deferred and deferred and deferred. And it's time to do something. While our logging crews don't have the equipment or the merchandising markets or capability to do this very well, so we would be in here doing a money-losing logging, and instead we're going to contract with J&A Logging. They've got biomass markets, they've got biomass machines, they've got feller buncher and bigger skidders. But we have to cut it hard to be able to make it work for them to operate their equipment. But they also are quite skilled at being able to leave some of these desirables. So we're going to leave some oak. We're going to leave as much of the white pine as we can, but I'm going to paint the white pine that is broken tops so that they know that they can cut those if they have to. So anyway, there'll be a lot to document as we go here. This is a big experiment. It's going to go well, but we're probably going to have to learn how to do this together between us and the contractor as we go. I've completed the prep work on the first section we're going to cut here along Highway 38. I'm just walking the road back to the car. What I've done is ribboned the attempted save trees. Eric Moses, who's operating the feller buncher for Chris Anderson at J&A Logging, he thinks he can save every one. Truthfully, if he can save 90%, I'll be thrilled. Right here, what you're looking at is a lot of red oak and young birch that I've marked to save. I'm sorry, ribboned to save. And then I've also ribboned a lot of hard maple and some soft maple. The birch and the oak is mainly along this edge, although there is a scattering of oak throughout. And then in the areas where there are young white pine, I've sprayed some of the broken top trees so he knows which ones he doesn't have to go out of his way to save. But otherwise I want him to just leave all the white pine, and we'll deal with that with brush saws later. He can also stay out of all of the heavy regen areas completely. But because they're in the biomass business, they may want to reach in there and grab some of this smaller stuff that we don't need to save. So this is the before, and very soon I'll be able to show you the after, because he just started cutting. Pretty exciting. I think this is going to be great. There's a lot more to this story here, a lot more to tell, and I'll tell it here as we go. June 1st, 2017. This is the beginning of the extensive harvest that we're going to do between Highway 38 and Wolf Lake. I ribboned the save trees, which is a lot easier than marking the harvest trees, because we're cutting hard here for regeneration purposes and for release of the white pine that's scattered in here and has been struggling, but is here, and we want it to do better. And there's not a whole lot else great other than maple and some oak young oak going on, and we're going to try to protect those too. Continuing on with this same theme, there's an S for save, apparently healthy white pine tree. There's a C for cut, clearly an unhealthy white pine tree. S for save. S for save. That's a save. And then the one off in the distance got a dead top, and that'll be cut. You spend a lifetime growing these trees, and it's hard to cut them. But boy, when you come back, and this is what you find what happened to them, it's a little disheartening. But what we've got to do is be willing to come get individual trees when they're starting to go or when they snap off. We got to be willing to take some of these at some time, because there's got to be a little bit of meat in the broth. And then we have to be really good at utilizing these dead standing and making products that sell, and sell at a good enough price to justify this kind of work. And it's a little bit difficult to overcome, the complete loss that you see right there. It's going to be tough to make anything out of that section of the tree. We'll get something out of the outside of the bottom of the tree. It's going to be pretty tough to get anything out of that middle section. Way up on the top, we'll probably get something out of that. That's not quite as rotten. Now this is a little bit deceiving because Eric's only cut one strip, and so we don't really know what it's going to look like in between the strips. But the theory is he's got to be able to get the machine through that machine, the feller buncher, and then the skidders have to be able to get the wood out, so he's got to lay it just as straight as he can. He's got to lay out his strip as straight as he can, so that when that wood is pulled, the tops don't destroy the trees that are left in the thinning area between the strips. So that's the first strip. That's what he got accomplished on the first day. I think he had a good first day. He had to cut his entry point on the far end of this and then along the back side of it, because every time he finishes cutting a strip, then he's got to work his way back and start cutting again from the other side. Anyway, we'll get a good look next week at what this is going to look like. But so far, I got to admit it's a little bit shocking to me. So it's really going to be shocking to people who didn't plan this like I did. What else are you going to do? Look at all this. Balsam of really no value to us. Maple pulpwood, no value to us, no future value. A little bit of scattered aspen that isn't enough aspen in one spot to be an aspen type. Some poor quality red oak, some poor quality birch. And then we got to try to leave this white pine. We got to try to leave red oak that we can, that's of decent form. We're going to leave maple that's of decent form, and hope that there's enough canopy in these strips to shade the white pine trees that, they're getting up there, but they're not ready to be completely on their own yet. They need a little bit of a canopy. So it's a grand experiment, but it was a great place to try it because what was here wasn't working and the snow just devastated it this winter. So something had to happen. I couldn't go the rest of my life and just keep looking at this and not doing anything. So stay tuned. 2017, here along Highway 38 and Wolf Lake. This is what I was hoping to see, and so far Eric's doing a great job. Got almost all the white pine he's been able to save. He has saved nearly every ribboned tree that I ribboned to save in addition to the white pine. And we've got the resulting canopy of sorts, not a ton, but some, and lots of light. And as much as this white pine has struggled in here, there's still a certain amount of it here, and it's going to take off now. It should do really, really well. It should get good and firm, strong, tall, and it won't be so susceptible to the snow and the ice. Looks pretty darn good. We'll take a good look at it after the skidding is done. All of that stuff that's laying down is yet to come out, and hopefully it won't do much damage when it's being pulled out, but it'll do some. Some beautiful oak in here. Most of that I've ribboned. Looks good. Got some good scarification here in the soil, really good soil. So we're going to get some excellent regeneration. Here's a nice basswood that we saved. Yellow birch. Not a ton of that in here, but there's some. Here's an area that had a little bit of mature basswood. There's not a ton of basswood in here, but I'm hoping to get a fair amount back now. So this will throw some seed, and hopefully it'll stay in place till the next time we're here, and then we can harvest it. Might have to come back and prop up some of these leaned over white pines. Hopefully this type of maple will respond like the maple on the other end of Birch Flats, which is essentially where we are. There's another one of those nice red oak that I really had no choice but to leave because there was nothing else there to leave. This is what we had hoped for when we first thinned this stand. Got to be 25 years ago, at least 20 years ago. And we planted this white pine, well, this is doing really well in here, and it got big enough and strong enough that it withstood the terrible snow and ice problem we've had in recent years. That one's kind of munged up from blister rust, but we've got plenty in here and it's growing real well. Well, the reason this is growing so well in here is because it's a good little microsite, evidently for white pine, as evidenced by this stump, which I'm pretty confident is a white pine. But either because we harvested that tree 20 years ago, or it had passed on its own accord. Kind of hard to tell because the stump is so decayed. But anyway, there was this natural opening right here, and the white pine that we planted in here did real well because we had enough of an opening. And a lot of the rest of this, we didn't have a natural opening, and or we did not harvest heavily enough. And so the balsam, which is so shade tolerant, grew in along with the white pine that we planted and really overtook it. And so now we're back in here getting this balsam out of here and releasing the white pine that did make it. Releasing meaning giving it more room to grow, and then creating opportunity for new things to grow in the place of this balsam. To let that balsam get much older would be a poor economic choice. We're not going to get a whole lot out of it right now either, but it just it wasn't meant to grow balsam in this spot. I'm along the Highway 38 at Wolf Lake Camp, June 16th, 2017. It's a couple weeks after we started doing the thinning. Not much of a thinning, more of a harvesting with leaf trees. And I'm out here now checking to see if the leaf trees are being protected adequately. I didn't ribbon them very heavily, so there ought to be plenty of room for the skidder operator to get around here without scarring them up. There's certainly going to be some that he can't avoid, but so far it looks really good. I don't see any scarring. And then after I get done checking this out, I'm going to see how they're doing on sorting for the chipper versus the sawmill and other markets. But first I wanted to get out here and see this, and so far I like the looks of it. I'm seeing some of these maple trees I couldn't tell had partially dead tops. It was just so thick in here before. But I probably should have ribboned some of them anyway, because we just have to leave something. J&A Logging is doing the felling and the skidding and the chipping. They've got big skidders. They are quite a bit wider than us, but they do have big tires, and the flotation is better, even though they skid much bigger loads than we do. They don't get as much compaction or rutting, I think, because they've got such wide tires. Excuse me. They can skid at least 2 to 3 times more than we can. Left all the white pine we can, even if it's broken. And we'll go back through and pick through it with brush saws if need be to get the cull or the damaged out. Here's a nice little clump of white pine that's in good shape that we've left. An oak with it that I ribboned. Here's a nice oak that I ribboned. That maple got scarred up, but it was bound to because it's right at a turning point in the skidding. Now that's a good sized drag with some big trees in it. A real mixed bag. Kicking it into high gear to make some time. Pretty impressive, huh, Ivor?